From a previous chapter, we learned that a client and a web service can be developed using different programming languages. And what helped them be backward compatible is uniform interface of communication that includes components such as message formats, request structure, and response structure. In this section, I would like to talk about HTTP request structure. That is one of the components allowing a client and a web service to be backward compatible while being developed in different programming languages. HTTP requests sent from a client to a web service and are composed of several parts. Let's look at duty of each part of HTTP request. The first part is protocol version. It points a version of HTTP protocol that is used. There are 4 versions of HTTP protocol. Commonly used version nowadays is HTTP version 1.1. The second part is URI. It identifies location of a resource. The third part is verb or HTTP method. It specifies HTTP method, namely actions that are performed over a resource, such as get, post, put. The fourth part is a request header. It supplies optional request headers in the form of key-value pairs that provide meta information about a request that a web service might need while processing the request. The fifth part is request body. It supplies an optional request body that identifies additional data to be uploaded to a web service. For instance, form parameters, attachments, and business entities. Having considered each part of HTTP request, let's take a look at example of HTTP request. The first line of request contains data about requested resource and composed of HTTP method, resource path, and HTTP protocol version. Next lines until a line break are request headers. This particular request has headers such as accept and content type. The content type headers tells a web service in which format a request body is being sent from a client, whereas the accept header informs the web service in which format a response body should be returned to a client. After headers, the line break is inserted. The line break acts as service information for HTTP request parsers to recognize when HTTP headers end and the request body starts. Afterwards, there is a request body. In this particular HTTP request, the request body is filled with data represented in XML format. Representation format of data that is a request body is filled with is not restricted to XML. It might be bytes, pure text, JSON format, and so on. One point that is worth mentioning is that the value of content type header should correspond to representation format of data that is being sent in a request body. Otherwise, a web service might not know how to deal with content of a request body. Now let's move on to the HTTP response structure. and consider main parts of HTTP response.